Welcome back to Finding Heather. Today, we're going to talk about the empowering act of retelling your own story, especially when regrets threaten to shape it for you. Remember, you have the pen in your hand to write your narrative. Are you ready to reclaim your story with authenticity and purpose? Let's begin. So I guess when it comes to like initial stories that might not necessarily serve you well, it would be the story of when I was born, my mom was married to one person who wasn't my father. And there were some conversations between all of our families of like, just to keep this information quiet. And so I always had lots of questions about who I was and, why things were the way that they were. And so one of the things that came out of that was like, one, feeling that I was a secret or that something was wrong with me. And it really wasn't that, but I didn't know any better. You have to be really conscious of the energy that you're putting out, because sometimes people don't recognize that you might be keeping a secret or you might be acting a certain way, but what you can't change is the energy, the truth of the energy of the situation. So I grew up in a situation where there were secrets. And even though the secrets were supposedly in my best interest, and they were made out of love because people thought that they were doing the right thing at the time. They thought it was the best thing. They were making the best choices that they could make with the resources that they had, right? And so one of those things that can come out of that is a feeling of not belonging, a feeling of not being good enough, a feeling of something about me just isn't right and I can't figure it out. I can't figure out what about me just isn't right. And then you go through life trying to show people that I'm okay, I'm right. So a lot of your energy is focused on showing people that, hey, look at me. I'm normal, I'm smart, I'm this, I'm that. And it all comes from a foundation of how can I show the world that I'm okay? Because I feel like I'm not okay, but how can I show the world? And how can I prove to myself that I'm okay? So let me do all of these things to show that I'm okay, or that I'm worthy, or that I should be loved. And so that is the story that formed the foundation of who I was. And then as I started to grow and luckily be exposed to more personal development and learning and tools and self-reflection. And that's when I started to recognize that that's not who you are. And then there's a whole discovery and research of, well, who are you really? Okay, what do you like? What don't you like? What do you feel about this? What do you feel about that? And just a whole rediscovery of myself and learning who I am. And that is when, and then lately, after my mom passed away last Christmas, then that's when I had a real epiphany of, you know what? Half of my life I've already spent, and the long half. So this last half, how do I want to rewrite my story? How do I want to write my own narrative? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What risks do I want to take? Like this whole thing, all of this is a risk. Putting yourself out there, putting your story out there, having people judge and say, oh, you made horrible decisions in life, or you shouldn't be talking about this. This is all a faith walk, all of this. But I chose it. So you have a part of life where your narrative is of someone else's creation. And I would love for people to take the time to, like, instead of waiting until this point in life, whenever you decide to rewrite your narrative, that's when you rewrite it. If you want to, if it's your choice, you don't have to. Because some people have situations where, like, hey, it works for them. And in my situation, not everything that was established in my life served me. In fact, a lot of it didn't. And so I'm assuming that there's some other people out there who maybe the narrative that was written for them is not completely serving who they truly are, you know? And that's where I am now. I'm in a space of, I write the narrative. I say what my life looks like. I say the risks that I want to take and I don't want to take. I say how I want to show up in relationships and how I don't. What am I fearful of and what am I not fearful of? Not a whole lot anymore at this point, you know, because I have faith and I pray and I make my decisions based on what's in my heart. And are they all going to be right? Probably not. But at least I know I'm making them from a space of love and good intention. Like, everything I do is not only for me and my son, you know, which is mainly for him. I want the things that I do and the things that I create and the lessons that I have to share, I want them to benefit him. And at the same time, I also want them to benefit other people who are like me, who have stories that are not the everyday stories, that are kind of different, and in some situations might seem or feel shameful or regretful. And how do you come back from that? And how do you say, you know what? I'm not gonna live my life in shame. I'm not gonna live my life not shining as God intended me to. That's not what we're doing here, because I've been blessed with too much. And I just have favor on my life. I have a healthy, beautiful son. I have a wonderful life. Have I made mistakes? Yep. Am I gonna make some more? Yep. Am I gonna stay swimming in, like, the space of, yes, I've made mistakes? No. That's what I used to do. I used to run stuff in my head over and over, and mistakes just over and over. And what I know now is that that's just creating the energy of guilt and failure. And if you keep letting it go, and it can turn into depression, right? Now I have the tools to say, hey, you know, this is not where I want to be. I want to shift my energy and focus on, where do I want to go? How do I want to be better? What do I want to do differently in this situation? And I hope that by me sharing my story with people, it kind of shows them, one, they're not the only ones, and I'm not the only ones who have made mistakes. They're not the only ones who have been dealt unfair hands. I'm not the only one who can turn it around. You know, we can all turn it around. You know, we all have things in life that we would like to come back from or change. And we always have that opportunity. I don't care if you only have one more day left in life. You don't really know how many days you have. So how about today? Let's take the opportunity to say how we want to live. Be happy. One of the things I want to talk about is perspective. How do you view yourself? How do others view you? And this is really important to consider in looking at writing your narrative, rewriting your narrative, examining your narrative. What has the narrative been up until this point? It's really, really important, because you really have to look at who you are. And sometimes it's hard. It's hard to peel back those layers, because other people have put different definitions on you and who you are. And sometimes you can be angry about that, who people have put on you to be. And then sometimes you could recognize that, guess what? They did that from who they were created to be and who people said they were. And so they did the best that they could with what they had, and not look at it as, oh, I'm mad at this person, or I'm mad at my parents for forcing these views on me or forcing me to be this way or that way. Because while you are blaming them, also take the opportunity to thank them. Because a lot of things that they put on you are the reason you are who you are today. Like, one of the reasons that I am here today having this conversation is because, one, my mom and my stepdad were very into personal development. Now, at the time, for me, they used it as a weapon against each other, unfortunately. And that's not what the purpose was. But what it did for me is it exposed me to a different mindset, a different way of thinking, a different curiosity. And a lot of times when my parents were really, really hard on me. Yeah, and that's probably because of what they experienced with their parents. And how did you turn out because of that? Okay, you were very disciplined. You are very successful. You have a great family. Those are things. So while we're busy blaming, also let's look at what was the gift? What was the blessing in that? And when you shift that perspective, that is when the change comes. That's when the growth comes. That's when you release the anger, the regret, the blame, and just say, you know what, had I not been through what I've been through, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I think we can all say that who we are today is maybe not perfect, but we are a result of trying to overcome those things that we didn't like. And now it's time to embrace those things. Instead of like pushing them away, we're to the point now where, okay, let me embrace these things that maybe aren't things that I like about myself, but they're things where I can grow. I have an opportunity to grow in that area, right? And focus on the things here's some things that I love about myself. And that's really, really important. It's important to see in yourself, is this a characteristic that I put on myself, or is this something that someone else put on myself? And you get to choose. You get to choose, yes, I like that. I like that characteristic. Or you know what? No, that's not really me. Because that's you rewriting your narrative. You get to say. So in the past, I used to relive thoughts in my head over and over, like almost obsessive thoughts. Like maybe I said something that I didn't mean to say, or it came out a way, and I would just like obsess about in my head, like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe that happened. What does that mean? What are they gonna think about me? What are this? So it would just like go over and over and over in my head till it almost made me sick. And I don't know if this has happened to other people. I would assume either I'm a cuckoo bird, or either this happens in other humans, which I think it does happen in other humans. And one of the things that helps me in this situation is now, which again, am I perfect now? No, we're never always gonna be perfect, but do I do it as much as I used to? No way, because I don't waste that kind of energy anymore. But sometimes things happen that I'm like, wow, I don't like how that went down. So what I do is I visualize in my head, well, what would I have wanted to happen instead, right? And so I visualize what that looks like, okay? So who would I have needed to be for that to happen? Oh, I need to be somebody who's compassionate, somebody who's this, somebody who's that, somebody who cares about the situation. Okay, is that who you are? Well, yeah, I'm a compassionate person. Okay, so are you a person who cares about people? Yes. Are you a person who thinks through things? Yes. So instead of those thoughts obsessing on the things that I don't want and how it went, reminding myself of who I am, that no, you are a person that typically, makes these decisions, makes good choices, does the research, does the, whatever the situation is, and reminding myself of who I really am. So shifting those thoughts, and consciously is almost like pushing your head in another direction, because you're gonna drift back to those thoughts, right? So maybe one thing you can do, write them down, write it. So that it's when you see yourself kind of drifting, read it. These are all the great things about you. These are the characteristics that you wish you had exhibited in that situation. And guess what? You have them. Because it keeps you from saying like, oh, what if this happens again? No, it was a one-off. it was a mistake or it didn't go the way I wanted it to go, but I have the things that I need to make it go the way I want it to go if this were to happen in the future. And one thing that's also important is, what is the lesson? What is the lesson? Because nothing happens to us just by chance. And if you go through some situations that happen in a way that you didn't want them to and you don't gain the lesson, well, then that's just a waste. Then what was the lesson you were supposed to learn in that situation? Because if you're obsessing about it, there's something there. There's something there. Figure out what's the lesson and what do you want to shift your focus to. Regret can cast shadows on our narrative, but it doesn't have to define them. Together, we'll explore how you can rewrite your story using regret as a catalyst for renewal. Your journey is a canvas waiting for your authentic brushstrokes. I want to ask you some questions. What regrets have you carried with you, and how have they influenced your story? Can you identify lessons learned from these regrets that can reshape your narrative? How do you envision your story evolving as you embrace your journey with authenticity and purpose? If you're seeking guidance on rewriting your narrative with authenticity and purpose, reach out to me. Together, we'll craft a story that reflects the incredible leader you are, free from constraints of regret. Until next time. Bye.